Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I congratulate the organizers for taking this up, and also thanking all of them for giving me an opportunity and inviting me for this. In a sense, I'm a little confused from the initial plan to discuss, and now I'll still try to stick to something what I have originally planned. Okay. Broadly, my long-term research is focusing on the social policy or migration and Kerala development process and all. So this session seems to be a little too much into migration, so I'm not getting into any of those things. Here, again, it's sort of an odd thing, instead of giving a kind of a series of research output, I'm here just to kind of probe some questions which has arisen from a sort of my own personal engagement, both as a kind of a mainstream economic or development research, and also with some limited exposure to the Arabic and Islamic studies. So it's mostly sort of a concern and a sort of a points and which I've shared across different occasions. And so this is not a kind of a result of any series of any serious research, rather it's a kind of sort of a collections of questions. Okay, first to begin with, how does this whole idea of Islamic economics or Islamic finance, rather Islamic banking and finance, we have a lot of synonyms used attached to it. And historically, there is a kind of a context where this whole idea has evolved. Broadly, almost in the early 70s and middle of 70s, it has emerged as a global theme in the larger development, research and finance. And it has again, if we strictly get into that, before that I want to again get into a question broadly we treat as Islamic versus as a secular or Islamic versus a mainstream economics, and unfortunately this is a kind of a categorization that has emerged 50 years back and still it remained there. Partly all of us, including myself, are responsible for remaining it as treating Islamic economics or Islamic finance, or rather banking and finance, still in the infantry stage or as a kind of an emerging discipline. Broadly, this is the context where most of my concern comes from. Essentially, I try to see the evolution of Islamic economics or Islamic finance in a global context, mainly driven by practitioners, either the practitioners from the academia or the practitioner from the banking and finance. And then, of course, there are countries which obviously the Muslim countries and those who technically follow the Islamic doctrines in their administration and governance. Countries like Pakistan and the GCC countries, they are the good example how the community demand and the governance and the administrative requirement eventually led to develop the discourse on Islamic economics and to develop institutional mechanism and the basic foundation for developing Islamic finance and banking system within those countries. And then when we leave these Muslim countries apart, we have the European and the broader Western countries, where this has come in a context where people were, especially the people who were sort of kind of not very happy with the mainstream things, and they were looking for alternative systems and alternative approaches which sort of help them or sort of drag them into some of the principles where the Islamic principles or the sort of the financial dealings which Islamic tradition followed. So eventually that led them also to kind of explore the larger domain of Islamic economics, the domain of Islamic finance. to kind of map broadly, we have the first set of countries as the Muslim countries, so-called Muslim countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, the GCC, Jordan, and all those countries. They eventually explore that thing, and they eventually set up their own national banks and national institutions that follow the doctrines of Islam and Islamic doctrines in the financial dealings. And the other side, the larger academia, they sort of explored it, but it has not led to the kind of practices. Rather, the practical implication was very limited, in the sense most of the leading banks start of a vocational stream, or sometimes it's a kind of a scheme, subsidiary schemes. Broadly, now this is the kind of a regular teaching program. Either we have developed a full-fledged degree or master's program, and then we have a kind of a subsidiary or specialization, either in the main specialization or the minor specialization. And then we have centers, most probably finance, banking, or in Islamic studies department, commerce also, some of the department giving add-on courses on Islamic finances that basically goes with as a kind of elective courses or a kind of a optional paper along with the mainstream thing. When we see the experience in this transition, globally we have countries like, as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia, Pakistan, Brunei, and the GCC, including Jordan, they have sort of developed Islamic universities with full-fledged Islamic banking or Islamic finance courses. And Europe and America broadly, some of them are like have sort of established centers which focus on Islamic finance and banking, but they hardly develop any course, structured full-fledged course on Islamic banking or finance. Power on. Okay, when we come to the local, like, to be brought, to be like a kind of in an all India scene, we again had sort of the minority-led, like Muslim universities like Aligarh University, the Urdu University, or some of the, even to some extent, like I'll come to the Kerala case again. And we have very few institutions like Institute of Islamic Banking and Finance in Hyderabad, or a few in the even okay, the very few institutions provide exclusive courses on or diploma courses or postgraduate diploma or any sort of exclusive courses on Islamic banking or finance, or like more particularly not much on the not much development in the Islamic economics as such. When we come to Kerala, it's in a sense like it's just like at the moment, just last year only, University of Calicut had kind of introduced the MA Islamic Finance and MA Islamic Economics as a mainstream courses in the university system. Like in a way, many of the colleges and institutions run by Muslim organizations, they are running these courses. So somewhat effectively, we are yet to see what is the outcome, what is the product of these courses, how are they kind of engaging with the mainstream economics and the issues. Otherwise, we have kind of institutions like, for instance, Darul Huda also have a system of giving particular courses within the Department of Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh, that stream, offering one particular course on Islamic economics. This again fit into giving as a kind of add-on courses, not as a full-fledged course in Islamic economics or Islamic banking. And Calicut University, again now there is a BA Islamic Finance and BA Economics with Islamic Finance, BA Islamic Finance with Computer Application. These are two combinations. One of the, this Computer Application course has been there from 2013, at least like working in some of the colleges nearby. But to be frank, there are other Islamic universities, to my knowledge, Al Jamia Islamia, this Shantapuram, and again there are other few more, like even Aligarh Center also had some courses in Islamic banking and finance. My own personal but very limited reading is that they have been effective in helping these graduates to fetch a job within the Islamic banking sector, financial services. But otherwise, it's very unfortunate that we are still in the same point we have started 50 years back. So the whole 5 decade has not made any substantial progress in developing the domain of Islamic economics or Islamic finance as a kind of a sort of a field of knowledge with kind of a regular academic or knowledge production or engagement. So that I find as a kind of the most critical gap in all what we see it. And if we try to map out the broad challenges what we see in terms of research and teaching in this Islamic economics and aligned discipline, these are some of the issues. For instance, the first and the foremost issue is the kind of a poor convergence. We have people who know mainstream economics, they have mastered the economics, and they do have a kind of exposure to the latest kind of dynamics and the kind of changes in the mainstream economics, but their access to the Sharia or the Islamic like tradition or Islamic domain of knowledge is very weak. On the other side, we have people who have very strong, very kind of a systematic kind of, they have studied the Islamic knowledge system and they have a Sharia access, all those things. But their capacity to engage with the mainstream economics is like, on the other hand, is like very weak. So this eventually lead to a situation, these both streams move parallelly, they never meet, they never engage with each other. So this is how we end up taking the fiqh department or usul fiqh department in Islamic universities or Arabic colleges continue offering courses in Islamic economics, Islamic finance or banking. On the other side, the mainstream economics department or finance or banking department, they hardly get a kind of any kind of a rigorous material or kind of an occasion to engage with the Islamic doctrines or even Arabic material. So this, to my personal reading, it's not going to be solved unless sort of a very effective and a kind of conscious effort has been to expect from the Muslim scholars precisely to come forward, to those who are in the mainstream to come forward to learn more the Sharia base, and those who are in the Sharia base to come forward to learn the mainstream economics. Otherwise, this thing will be remaining in the same ways. It will remain as a kind of an emergent discipline, no matter whether you finish a 50 years or 100 years. And a lot of this mainstream economists, those who have tried to kind of study Islamic economics, find these like some of these issues as a kind of a basic problem or the kind of a stumbling block that they have faced in accessing the Sharia or making any sort of effective engagement with the Sharia knowledge and the kind of material. To some extent, it could be justified, but at the same time, you might agree that within the Sharia also you have a limited space, you have a flexibility in certain ways, but whether on the other side you have a very limited thing. For instance, how do you derive kind of a solution? How do you engage with the issues which never had any kind of a textual or the fundamental reference in any of the basic references which we fall for any kind of interpretation or to kind of get any sort of solution. This remains as a thing. And the other thing is again, to sum up, it still in a way it remains as a secular economics or a mainstream economics in one side. The other side, it's like Islamic economics on the side. They still like give no kind of a signal to kind of a hope that they would meet in any immediate like future. The other one thing is that like potentially, for instance, I have done a postdoctoral research in the basic financial inclusion and the financial options like within the Malappuram and the Kerala context. more or less, I see a lot of potential in terms of community finance, traditional finance, and the kind of a very sort of novel ways in which the community avoid getting into riba or avoid getting into the formal financial services, which obviously work on the interest. At the same time, we also do not have a kind of alternatives to kind of to offer to them. For instance, there is no Islamic bank or even any sort of agency providing financial services, which is something like 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees on a reasonable kind of a service charge, on a reasonable base of like kind of a collateral or any that kind of a security which normally the formal financial services were being offered. So eventually they've been like pushed towards these kind of exorbitant like money lenders or the kind of high rate of like, especially in Tamil, in Malappuram, I didn't see any Muslim or local money lenders, but like most of the places we have money lending done by outsiders. In most of the cases in tribal areas or in the coastal areas and sort of those kind of a vulnerable geographic region, it's done by the Tamil money lenders. So why is it that the Tamil money lenders, like they have historically been doing the petty trade and installment business through the household, and so somehow they figured out there is a chance to do this money lending. But there were a few cases where among the Muslim communities also there have been lending money on the basis of interest. But these cases came out only when one of the parties who involved in this money lending business violate the rule. For instance, one of the person lent the money on an exorbitant rate of interest. The other side, other party, the one who borrowed the money, refused to pay on time or refused to pay the interest on a particular rate or something like that. Then they get into a conflict, and somehow then only the whole business, the subtle way or the sort of a very secret business come to the public, and people come to know that even within the Muslim community also there is a money lending practice, and people still depend on that. And the other thing is that we have a very limited sort of experience of taking whatever little domain knowledge we have developed in the area of Islamic finance and Islamic banking or Islamic economics to the practical side. We don't, this is a sort of sad situation about the whole Indian academia, that whatever result we derive from the series of research, it's end up as a kind of academic output. It never will be translated into any policy. It will never get that kind of a recognition, or the policymakers, obviously, they are also not very keen about it. So whatever little research and the domain development has been there, it is not being taken into the field, or those who are within the banking or financial sector, they hardly like a sort of recognize, or they hardly agree that we have developed something which is worth for them. And so in some sense, like if I sort of to kind of prop you people to kind of to be a little self-reflective and to be a little self-critic, the Islamic economics and finance, what we generally see within the Islamic universities or the Arabic universities or those kind of things, in some sense it end up like a kind of a kind of an agency or a kind of a space where we just develop fatwa, or we just try to sort of evolve or to sort of build some kind of a fatwa based on the existing rule and to sort of engage with the current condition. So beyond ideology or even beyond this, it is important, I agree with it, but as a discipline, the very reason where the discipline remained in a kind of emerging phase or an infantry stage, it is because of this approach. We did not care much about developing the domain or the system, rather we were just providing solution most of the time in the name of fatwas, or sort of a solving, to maximum we were like kind of approving things, whether this is halal or this is haram kind of a thing. So being a person with some limited exposure to the both side, my urge, sort of my request is to sort of explore this area and sort of make an attempt, genuine engagement to sort of address these questions. Otherwise, this will not take us anywhere, or in this area of Islamic economics or banking or finance remain as a kind of underexplored area forever. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.